Welcome to the Coaching Crowd podcast with me, Zoe Hawkins, and my friend and co-host Jo Wheatley.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Coaching Crowd podcast. Today, we're talking about building confidence as a coach. And the reason we're talking about this is it's something that new coaches or coaches in training can struggle with. So we thought we'd share a little bit about our own personal experience and just give you an overview around strategies for building your confidence as a coach.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also something that as a leader or a line manager who's trying out different approaches and coaching techniques can, often think, oh gosh, I don't know if this is the right thing to do. And that comes back to confidence. So we're going to share with you a few little things. So I think one of the first things that I reflect on from when I was coaching is that transition from feeling like an expert in my field. So I'd been in my career for 15 years. There wasn't really many questions that could be asked that I couldn't easily find the answer to or know the answer to. And that gave me a sense of confidence to be able to walk into a meeting or a room and feel well resourced to be able to handle the situation. And obviously in coaching, you're drawing on an entirely different set of skills. Actually, you don't need to be the expert at all. In fact, you don't want to have any answers for the client. The client has the answers. You have the questions. And I think something we see in our trainee coaches is that needing to know what question to ask next, and wondering, are they going to dry up of questions? And I think certainly how I coach today, I have no idea what the next question is because my client hasn't said their answer yet. My questions emerge from the answers that my client gives. And that transition, I think, of letting go of the need to be an expert, letting go of the need to have the direction of the conversation planned out is a big transition when you're learning to coach. So reassurance that you do not need to have your entire coaching session planned out and need to know the direction where it's going, and being able to sit in the discomfort with our clients and in the not knowing with our clients is actually really a powerful place to be.
Yeah, I think building your confidence as a coach is a process. It takes time. It requires patience. And that sitting in the discomfort of not knowing with your client is about being able to let go of your ego and really meet your client as an equal. And there's that tension between preparing for a session and not doing coaching to the client and taking them through that exact thing. So it's doing enough preparation so that you feel resourced to be able to flex and connect with, the questions or things that might be useful for your client. And also being able to be fully present with them and be prepared to let all of that go.
Yeah. And preparation for me typically looks like reading the client's notes. So reading back through any client history that I've got, any sessions that we've done before, kind of connecting into just them, their energy, what life might be like for them right now. So thinking about them in the lead up to the session, refreshing myself on some tools or models that seem appropriate to the client journey that we're on. And then, as you say, going in ready and prepared to be able to listen and be present. And for me, when I may be getting overwhelmed as a coach, when my life is happening and I'm feeling busy and I'm going into a session and perhaps I'm feeling like my confidence isn't fully there, it's remembering that actually, if you do nothing else in a coaching session but hold space, be present and listen, that in itself is deeply transformational for a client. And I think when we're in coaching training, obviously each week you're receiving more and more information, different tools, different techniques, different approaches, different skills. Now think about this, now think about that. It can become overwhelming, but actually if you strip it back, coaching is really the skill to be able to hold space for somebody, be able to deeply listen and just let them share what is meaningful for them at that time. And I think if you're finding as a coach, you have a bit of a confidence crisis, just go back to that and remember, the true power of coaching and why you're there.
And of course, the Be Perfect driver can show up for people in coaching. And I think one of the ways that shows up, what we hear is people feel that if they didn't judge the decision they made in the moment to be perfect and the right thing, there's a lot of was it the right thing type questions that come up. And it's not so much about right and wrong. It's more about what was useful or not so useful in the conversation. But they'll often judge it, and their confidence will hang by the judgment of that moment rather than thinking about the full spectrum of the coaching program. So an example there would be, as a coach and the coachee together, you might feel like the first 4 sessions have been okay. You've been building to something, but there hasn't been any huge ahas. And then maybe in session 5, you suddenly have a breakthrough. Now, how will you judge the value of the coaching session, and how will that program rather, and how will that impact your confidence? I think we can encourage people who are training or developing as coaches, or maybe even very experienced, to be able to take that more wider helicopter view of the impact and value of the coaching program. That can help to build confidence in the moment and trust in the process, as so many of us say.
And I think what you're talking about there, Jo, is like, how do you define what success looks like for you as a coach? Because in different employed roles, we can get feedback, we can progress through a structure. We have goals and objectives around being able to monitor for ourselves. Are we meeting them? Are we meeting other people's expectations? And in coaching, obviously, there's you and there's the client. And so how do you get what you need in order to build your confidence and monitor your success? So is that you need specific feedback from your client? Is it that you need a reflective practice routine for yourself? So really thinking about, what is it that helps me to build my confidence, and making sure that you build that into your coaching program such that you get those needs met. And I think second to that is then trusting in your client's feedback. So if it's feedback that you need in order to help you to understand the impact that you're having, what I see often happening is that ego again coming out and questioning, oh, well, my client's only saying that because, or, the client said that they had a great session, but I didn't see any big breakthrough, for example, as you shared earlier. And actually, we sometimes filter our clients' feedback based on our own ego. And I think trusting that what your client shares is true for them, and that is the important piece to really listen to.
And so many times when we think that the client has had a big breakthrough in a session, and you ask them, what was most useful to you in today's session, they don't mention that at all. They'll mention something else. So it really is so important to recognize that we have maybe different filters to our clients. I think another situation where the low confidence can show up can actually be when the low confidence isn't our own, it's actually our clients. So if you've got a portfolio of clients and a lot of them are struggling with anxiety or wanting to, develop their own confidence, and you notice as a coach that you're starting to feel less confident in your coaching, that might actually be as a result of the dynamic and the experience you're having in that coaching relationship, and not necessarily your own, which might be why it feels unfamiliar, strange, or just hard for you to make sense of. And that's where supervision comes into play. Supervision often, when people are starting out in coaching, is like mentor coaching in many ways. And the coach will come to the supervision session and say, I've done this and this and this and this. Was that right? Should I have done something else? So the parental comes in, like would the great coaching bods of all time have done that because I need to do that? And of course, it's not. You're your own coach. You've got your own skills, knowledge, and experience, your own style. And as long as you're working ethically, alongside those global, the code of ethics, then you're doing just great. And it's about how you contract with your client, about what you're going to work on, how you're going to work together on that. And what can support you in terms of building your confidence is CPD, being clear, reflecting yourself around what are my strengths, what am I doing well with in terms of those core coaching competencies that the coaching bodies provide for us. What are my areas for development? What are the things that I kind of have hangovers about after the sessions? What CPD might support me in these areas? And then when you go and do the CPD and you get to kind of, measure your existing understanding, sometimes you'll think, actually, I know more than I think I knew. Or other times it's like, wow, this is opening up a whole new world for me. And lenses to my coaching practice. And so having peer support, I think, is really important for us, Zoe. I mean, that was huge value to us, wasn't it? Starting out, being able to check in with each other and say, I'm working with the client, I've done this and this. It was like it's peer supervision, basically. And having the relationship with the other person can challenge you and it feels safe to be challenged is really important.
Yeah, I think often we can overlook that coach network. I think there's a lot of times that we seek to build our network so that we're getting clients through our network. But actually, particularly for those of you who are an independent coach, actually having a coach network around you and being part of a coaching community is where you can have those professional discussions and be like, oh, I've got this client and I tried this. What would you have done? Just share with me your ideas about how you would have handled that. That can be really confidence building. And going back to your supervision point, Joe, I remember a supervision session myself where I arrived at this supervision session and I was like, I've got this client, and I explained the situation and I'm really uncertain about, which way to move forward. And I think I'm coming for reassurance. And, my supervisor was like, that's really interesting. How come you need reassurance? And so we started to explore that. And it was exactly as you described. It was a situation where my client was seeking reassurance. I was kind of picking up on that dynamic and then starting to question my own. So yeah, supervision is a great place to help to unpick and build confidence. And then I think reflective practice, is kind of an extension of supervision, isn't it? I know we were talking offline around how we used to take really extensive notes from our coaching sessions and provide those to our clients, and in some packages we still do. And actually, as I reflect back, the note-taking part of coaching was really reassuring for me, because I can remember those clients and genuinely thinking, I don't know if this has been particularly impactful, this coaching, like, I'm not sure. And then I would read the notes and I'd be like, oh yeah, it has. Like when I looked back on how much we had crammed into a 6-session package, it is phenomenal, the ground that you can cover in that time. And so for me, certainly in those early days, having those extensive notes there to be able to look back and review and help me to prepare and really help me to get into the space with my client was a huge confidence building activity.
I think accreditation can really help to build confidence as well, as daunting as it might be. When you're looking at accreditation, what process do I have to go through? What boxes do I need to tick? How difficult is it going to be is often the question that people ask, rather than how much value is this going to, how valuable is this going to be for me? And in fact, we resisted accreditation for a long time. But actually going through the accreditation process is an opportunity for you to really reflect and connect with all of the hours of coaching training that you have done, all of the coaching hours of practice that you have done, and to plan your CPD, think about all the supervision you've had. So all the different lenses and inputs into your coaching practice, feedback from your clients, what you've discussed in supervision, and it gives you that credibility marker really out in the wider world that says, I have met these different criteria, whether it's for the foundation level, the practitioner, senior practitioner, master practitioner level, or from the ICF perspective, the ACC, PCC and MCC levels. But once you've got that, I think for a lot of people, it's almost like a sigh of relief. I've made it. And for us, we went from being the highest level in our HR career, so fellows of the CIPD, to not being accredited coaches, doing our coaching training, getting that qualification. And then obviously it takes time to build up your hours and get to the equivalent level. But there is that point, I think, which you do that. And there was a discussion in the coaching crowd group yesterday around, should I still pay for my CIPD membership? And that piece around identity that we've talked about on previous podcasts, and that willingness to let go. But it definitely, being qualified and accredited, I think, can be very useful in terms of confidence building.
Yeah. And, I think with accreditation, as much as the badge of accreditation is helpful, the process is actually genuinely helpful as well. The process of reflection that you go through, of thinking about all the different clients that you've worked with. For some, it might be about writing up case studies. Actually, the process itself is confidence building when you really take time to reflect back on just how much you've achieved really in the space that you've been working with your clients. So I think we hear, don't we, around there's a debate, do I need to be a qualified coach? And we've talked about this before, and our answer is of course yes, because we train people to be coaches. But it's not really just about having the qualification. That's not really the ultimate reason why having a coaching qualification is important. It's because of the huge confidence building journey that you go on. It's about learning what you don't know. It's about unlearning what you think and is helpful, but turns out to be counterintuitive in a coaching relationship. So, even for coaches, and we have a few coaches, don't we, who come on our coaching training programs, and they know how to coach. Of course they do, but actually they're coming for their own CPD to take a deep dive into, the coaching content and the qualification to help to put laser focus, I think, on their performance. And that's a confidence building process as much as a knowledge and wisdom building process as well. So there's that. I think also in terms of confidence building, we talked about this on our coaching podcast about coaching confidence. It's really important that you don't just label yourself as not confident, like, oh yeah, I'm a coach, but I'm not a confident coach. Like, what does that actually mean? Are you confident in building rapport? Yeah. Great. Okay. Are you confident in holding silence? Yeah. Great. Like, you have to find which part of coaching is it that you're not so confident in. And once you can identify that, it's less overwhelming, because then you're like, oh, okay, so now I've got a development area in my coaching, and perhaps it's around the not knowing or the letting go of control. But once you can identify the specific piece that you're struggling with in terms of your confidence, well, then you can start to think productively around, okay, so how do I plug that gap? How do I build my confidence in that specific area, rather than just labeling yourself as a coach that's not confident?
And of course, if it turns out that you feel that you've never been confident with anything, and this is another example of where it's never enough. It's like, how much is enough? How much how much theory do you need to know in order to feel confident, or, whatever your measures are. So if you have that popping up as, actually, this is a pattern in my life, this is something I want to explore, unpick, move on from, then of course you need to think about, do I invest in a coach myself to support myself in this area? Because ultimately our limits are our clients' limits. And so we have a responsibility to be able to kind of scan that. And I think it's also about noticing, what do we feel in our bodies? What is the evidence that we would notice that tells us that we are feeling confident? Because often people focus on those feelings, of not having it, but what would it feel like to have it? And how do you notice that and share observations with your clients as well around that, confidence? How will you know when you are feeling confident? What impact will that have for you?
I think also, what you're saying there, right? You getting coaching for your own triggers. It's also about embodying what you do. So if you're a coach and you're telling people that you're a coach and you're working with clients in coaching, and you're not in coaching yourself, then that can also start to feed into the back door of well, unconsciously, how can I be good at this if I don't see the value in investing in it myself? And so I think there is that piece, at some point in your coaching career, to be investing in your own coach, not just for your own triggers, but also for your own growth around what is it that you're trying to achieve? What is it that you want to be able to be or do in this world, and get some coaching for that and enjoy the coaching process for that. And obviously in the process of doing that, you get to experience another coach and see how they do what they do. So you'll learn for yourself and your own personal growth, but you'll also learn about coaching and how to coach from the coach that you have. So, you know, I think that's a wonderful thing to do.
You know, there's also a bit of this, though, which is it's great to be able to connect with that feeling of not having confidence. Like that can also be useful as a coach in the coaching relationship, to be able to step into your client's shoes. So it's, as we talked about in the episode around emotions, like emotions are neither, you know, good nor bad. What feeling do you have when you don't feel confident? Let's start by labeling that. That isn't a bad emotion. It's not something you have to get away from, but it's about connecting with what is it that needs. What is that a signal for me to lean into? And that could be one of a number of different things. So really just remember that it is a process. It's a normal and natural process for you to go through as you are growing into a new identity, a new role, a new world almost, it can feel like, with these new communities. Lean into your peers. Make sure that you've got a supervisor that you can discuss these things with, because they're there to support your well-being as well as your professional development. Take time to reflect and notice and acknowledge and honor the great work that you are doing with your client. And remember, you have to meet your client where your client's at. Take a look at accreditation if you haven't already. And if you're not qualified and you're thinking, you know, I think I'm pretty good at this, but I don't know, so I don't really feel that confident to do it, take a look at getting qualified. That is a good way to build your confidence as well as your toolkit. As we were talking about, might be a good time for some coaching for yourself if you want to overcome some saboteurs. Break down what it is specifically that you want to build your confidence in around coaching, and work out how you're going to measure your success so that can help to build that mindset of confidence that can allow the ego to be, you know, quietened down so that you can be fully present and do your very best coaching with your coachee.
Yeah. And if you are a coach with your own business and you're looking for a community of coaches where you can get that support, not just to grow your business, but also other coaches to help you to feel supported and encouraged, then do come and check out our membership, the Coaching Crowd Business Lounge. You can find details of that on our website at igcompany.co.uk/lounge.